Hello again, my friends. The iPhone 11 has leaked yet again. So in this video, let's break it down and let me introduce you again to this year's iPhone 11. And I know it's super confusing. There's already two models out that claim to be the iPhone 11, and yet they both claim to be correct. But first off, I just want to say you guys are absolutely brutal. You destroyed my concept online. I feel like 95% of you guys absolutely hated it. Yesterday's model was such a disaster that Apple, seeing the feedback within 24 hours, probably scrambled to release this new and updated iPhone 11, still different from last year's iPhone XS, but yet all new and probably the phone of choice for Bender from Futurama. Yes, I'm going to be calling this phone the Cyclops phone because all I can see is Bender's face in that lens. So yes, this is the new iPhone 11. It claims to be anyways. This is an early prototype, also an EVT, an engineering validation test, which means yes, it still may be prone to change if Apple does choose this design. So I gotta say, it's all right. I personally prefer the square design. Most people tend to prefer this one. I really don't like the look it gives this phone. It makes it look like a cheaper Android phone. I mean, you see center designs like this. It just seems so un-Apple-like. I personally cannot believe that this is Apple's design, that they would be using it, but apparently 100% this did originate from Apple. This came from their labs. It's a prototype. It doesn't exactly mean they're going to choose just this one, but yes, it is one of the prototypes Apple is considering. So taking a closer look, we can see there is a third lens here. This is a 3-lens setup, a very interesting one. We have seen so many, and this one by far is the most out there. What I do appreciate about it though, and I gotta say most of you probably will too, is that it is symmetrical. So everything down the line is evenly mirrored across both sides. In the middle, I like that the lens there is nestled between the flash, but personally, I would be a little concerned about the quality of the flash because there's a camera centered right in the middle of it. Wouldn't that cause some sort of ghosting or taking pictures at night? There must be some sort of interference here, but perhaps Apple learned some new technology, and this technology isn't new. It does exist on certain devices. It certainly has been done before. It's not ideal. Also interesting is that the mic is positioned directly below that camera and the flash, so it is a mirror image both ways you go. I'm assuming in the middle, that lens there would be the zoom lens, the new 3x optical zoom with the 3D sensing capability, but nothing's pointing to that being the one. To me, what that looks like is someone just took the iPhone XS camera design and placed it directly in the middle on its side in the horizontal orientation. Now, I also wonder how this would change the internals of the iPhone, because the camera unit itself takes up a lot of room inside the iPhone. In fact, part of the reason that notch exists there is because there's really nowhere else to put any of the things that are over there. So when you put a camera smack dab in the middle, wouldn't that interfere with the battery, with the logic board, with all the current internals that are inside the iPhone XS or 10 models? So obviously there's going to be some huge reworkings in the internals if this is the one. And Vanya Geskin pointed out to me that the antenna bands all over the device, I didn't even notice this at first, but the antenna bands are everywhere. There are so many on every corner of the iPhone. Now, they're not too apparent, but definitely more than you would see on the iPhone XS series. Also, we can't very clearly see the bottom of the phone to check out that speaker situation, but one of the antenna bands that's there directly overlaps where currently there are speaker grills, and I'm assuming that they would reduce the amount and make them symmetrical on the bottom. Since they're focusing so much on symmetry on that camera, they would probably make the bottom speaker grills symmetrical as well. So we reflected that. There are less speaker grills, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the speakers are getting any worse. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they're getting even better, as Apple's been very proud of their speakers lately, and the iPhone XS is absolutely true testament to that. Also, when designing this thing, we noticed that the notch design here is asymmetrical. Now, I'm pretty sure that's a design error. Whoever was rendering this, they probably overlooked this detail because there's no way that someone took a CAD file from Apple and that's the way that that was set up. And I didn't see that being mentioned anywhere. The notch design itself is pretty small compared to the real one, and compared to ours that we assumed, it's just a little bit different. The positioning of the earpiece drops down a little bit, which I assume is correct because I think we had ours a little bit too high. That thing takes up a lot of room. It's a speaker and an earpiece in one, so dropping it down gives them a little buffer room for that. Also, the camera is a little close to the earpiece, so I'm not sure if that's accurate. These details may not be fully finalized. If this is the design, as they say, it's one of them. I'll explain why there are two designs, both claiming to be the real one here, but if it was the real one, it would be a very tight fit there, and I'm not sure that that would be fully accurate. So there's that design, and here here's how it compares to yesterday's. Obviously a much more elegant solution, much more realistic in my eyes. That camera is just way too big from yesterday's design. This one is realistically what Apple could do. Apple's all about being small, optimizing, and this does follow their design language. Now Vanya Geskin takes it a step further, and this is the absolute perfect and ideal iPhone 11 in my eyes, placing that lens in the usual spot where the iPhone XS has it. It's just clean, it's optimized, it would work, it brings over that triple lens camera while keeping the flash. I just personally never thought that Apple would do something with the flash like that, like the Ring. Is it less efficient? Does it work as good? I'm concerned about that, as you guys can tell. So which one of these is real? Personally, none of them are ideal, but apparently both are real. Both are actual prototypes that Apple is working on. These are EVT prototypes. So that means they're going through engineering validation tests. None are fully confirmed. The design may still switch and be altered if any of these were to be chosen, but there are two options here that the source is claiming that Apple will go with. Either they'll choose both, and one of these is going to be the lower end model, with one of them being the higher end model, which is less likely because it was rumored there would only be one triple lens iPhone. The other option here is that one of these will be the sole survivor. Apple's going to place both of these in the ring and see them fight. Obviously, you can see from all of the hate on the new iPhone that the square design is not ideal. And just from the reaction online, maybe Apple's monitoring that, they would probably be leaning towards that bender looking phone. And a very important point that the source mentions is that Apple is walking a very fine line here. They're already not doing so great with the iPhone XS. So in my opinion, I think that they're trying to do something so drastic to make you forget about all the other woes and, think that it's a completely new phone just because the design is shifting so much. And that's kind of what Apple's going for here. So they're saying it's an important balance that the camera placement should be good, the price should be good, but it's probably going to be rising. So if Apple is going with either one of these, they really need to think this through. Here's a quick recap of the lineups. So if Apple were to go with either one of these, this is what it would look like. I'm assuming the other iPhones would follow the design language of this new bender phone. So we made a new iPhone XR2 with that dual lens camera that's rumored for that phone. The iPhone 11 without that middle camera and just a regular flash, as Vanya Geskin kind of mocked up. We just went off of that. And on the other side with the square design I showed you yesterday, this is what that lineup would look like. So nothing too crazy, just the top end iPhone XS Max would be getting the really ridiculous upgrades. And according to that Wall Street Journal report that came in a little bit earlier, LCD iPhones are going the way of the Dodo. So this is the last year we're ever going to see an LCD iPhone. The iPhone XR2 is going to be keeping the LCD display just because that's what Apple had planned for the longest time, and now that they've got things in motion, it's very hard to change those plans, but they are adamant to get rid of LCD next year. So next year, the entire iPhone lineup will be an organic LED sporting iPhone. Now yesterday, the iPod Touch 7th generation was rumored by Mac Takara, and we're working on a concept, of course, we have to. There weren't really much details about that, but the interesting thing in that report is that Mac Takara claims USB-C is actually being considered for 2019 iPhones. Now this comes as good news because we've heard from other sources that it would not be happening, so of course I like to hear that it is coming. Apple consolidating all of their products into one standard, yes, please. And of course, logically, it's much more likely to happen now that Apple switched over to USB-C on their new iPads. And in a separate report by Barclays, they're claiming that Face ID will be improving on the 2019 iPhone 11 through the means of a more powerful flood illuminator. So that means that that flood illuminator can be both faster and more accurate as it's more powerful, probably beaming out even more dots than the current 30,000 that the iPhone does. And in a separate report from Reuters, Apple is actually considering 5G modems for this year's iPhones. Previously, we've heard from other sources that they wouldn't be adding it. And of course, with Apple's history, you kind of know they're very slow to adopt new cellular technologies. With the 3G, they were already behind on that. They were really behind on LTE. And of course, they'd like to see the waters being tested by other manufacturers before dipping their toes in. Unfortunately for Apple, their phones aren't doing so well, so they'd want some sort of leading innovation, and 5G can provide that. And I think two of the most important things for the 2019 iPhone 11 could be 5G and USB-C that'll finally bring so many people that have been holding out upgrades over. And Barclays is also reporting that Apple will be including the Wi-Fi 6 standard. So I just got the new Netgear Wi-Fi 6 router. It kind of sucks. I'm hoping that that technology improves by the time that that does release, but Wi-Fi 6 has a lot of profound new changes. The notable changes of Wi-Fi 6 are, of course, better speeds under load with many devices on the network, better speeds when in a house, when passing the signals through walls, and more power efficient devices that are using the Wi-Fi 6 chip. And also in that large Wall Street Street Journal reports, Apple is actively looking to kill 3D Touch in future iPhones. They're trying to reduce the cost of the iPhone, and one great way to do that is removing 3D Touch. Apparently, it's a feature that's not being utilized by too many, so they're just going to ruin it for everyone and remove it entirely from their phones. I really hope this is one thing that is not true about this year's iPhones. And wow, there it is, another huge iPhone 11 leak. We'll have to see which one wins the battle of the triple lenses, Bender or the GoPro phone. We'll have to see as time goes on. What's cool is that this year is shaping up to be very exciting in terms of leaks. I personally didn't foresee this, that Apple would be doing something so drastic, but I love it. I live for this stuff. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. We'll be coming at you with that iPod Touch concept here very soon. Peace.